Welcome. Thank you so much for attending How to Host a Legislation Event, Open the Door to Advocacy. I'm Patrice Racklin. I'm the New York State PTA Resolutions Coordinator, and I'd like to also introduce Susan Fisher, the New York State PTA Legislation Coordinator. And we're so excited that you're with us for this wonderful, wonderful workshop. Basis of this workshop is basically who, what, where, when, and why. We're looking to learn how to host an informative legislative forum. And the way we do that is we look to get legislators, educators, PTA members, stakeholders, everyone together to discuss those hot topics that we're interested in education.
This is a chance for you to build relationships with your legislators, to strengthen relationships, to engage your community and show them what PTA advocacy can really mean.
Who are we looking to have come? Who's hosting? Who's attending? Anyone can host: a local PTA unit, a council, a consortium of multiple PTA units or councils, a region PTA, a state PTA. Who are your attendees? PTA members, community members, educators, teachers, administrators, BOE, education stakeholders, legislators, and of course, those community members and organizations that you partner with.
If you have an issue that you are interested in, make sure that you contact and reach out to get anyone that may be interested to learn about, speak on, be a part of it, come to your event. Any experts that you have that you can reach out to would be a great time to help build those relationships here and make those connections.
So now what? Well, you're going to send invitation letters to a whole slew of people. You're going to send them to your legislators. You're going to invite panel discussion, fireside chat, roundtable, and keynote speakers. You're going to have education stakeholders available. Your format will be determined by what kind of event you're having, but you do need to send those invitation letters. You're going to send your flyers and invitations out to your PTA members, your administrators, teachers, Board of Ed members, and community members. There's all kinds of invites and flyers that you will need for the event. A lot of it now is going to be online, but you will also need your program brochure, your agenda, bios, and platform book.
And you want to get these invitations out first, because who comes to your event will kind of form how your event takes shape and what format it's going to be in. So we have a few of these invitations that we can show you. So for example, here's an example of a unit invitation that Nassau Region had for their 2019 legislative conference. So you have here a lot of your information about what the format is going to be. There was a legislation and education panel discussion and a fireside chat. And you're going to inform people who's invited, so they know if this invitation goes to a PTA president, they know they can share it with their unit members, they can share it with their teachers, their principal. You're going to talk about who are the speakers, what collaborators, what partners are being represented at this panel discussion. If there's a fireside chat, who's going to be there, and you're going to give the registration information.
Yeah, if you're interested in having a commissioner at the time for this event, Mrs. Mary Ellen Elia was the commissioner for NYSED. We invited her, and this was the letter that we sent. It also outlined the agenda for the day so that she had an idea of exactly what was happening, what her portion would be, and what the time frame would be.
If you have a keynote speaker, you want to make sure to invite them, give them an idea of what it would look like, when they would be speaking. You know, if they give them procedures, right? If they want to have a presentation, find out from them what they would need in order to do their presentation, to be a keynote, and so that they can let you know what you would need to provide for them as well.
And of course, there's always the legislators. And legislators historically like to pop in. So once again, the agenda would be very important to them. This one has a time frame, which gives the legislators and stakeholders an idea of exactly what they're going to be participating in. In this case, this legislator would be participating in the legislation education panel discussion, and it outlines when that is and who else will be there. So nothing's a surprise. It's very open, honest, transparent, and they have an idea of what's happening. That gives them a very good idea for their time frame, and they can budget their time mindfully.
You do want to be respectful of their time. So once you do develop this timeline, you want to stick to it, and they are going to be, you have to be a little bit flexible. They may pop in late. They may leave in the middle of it. We had an event that we hosted, and all of the senators got up and left pretty much at the same time because they had somewhere else to be, but the assembly people were still there. But you kind of have to allow them that space to give you the time that they can give you, and then be able to manage when they're not there.
Yeah, PTA flexible.
That's what we like. So let's go back to this now.
All right, a little bit more. Your legislator contact information is really important. You may look to create a document that would encompass not just your New York State senators and assembly people, but also the federal senators and House of Representatives, the county representatives, the town local people. It's kind of like a go-to for everybody. It's part of, it's a great document that could be part of a giveaway online or in hard copy, however you choose, for your PTA people and attendees to hold on to and use throughout the year. There's also legislative priorities and position papers that hold a lot of important information on what you're advocating for. And there's 4 levels of that. Obviously, the local PTA, what's important to those units, but region has their legislative priorities, New York State has theirs, and so does national.
Also, any partners that are coming, when we had the Nassau Suffolk School Boards Association, we would allow them to share with us their legislative priorities as well, so that people, that is, if they have a handout handy, that can be emailed or added into whatever handout packet you have to give to your members, that is a good thing to have as well, to share and collaborate. So we have a couple of examples. So again, the Assembly and Senate and your local legislators, obviously after elections in November is the best time to set this up so that you get the most updated information. Whether or not they are elected or re-elected, their offices and locations may change. So you want to make sure that after election day, you review who's got what position, what their contact information is. And so we have a bunch of them here. The state, the senators, the local, our Nassau County ones, because that's where we were from. And there you go.
I think the federal are at the end. And what's
Yep.
nice about something like this is that the way this is set up in particular is it also tells what towns, so what areas the particular legislator is responsible for or represents.
And
That's always
also
good
tell
to
what
know.
committees they're on.
Mhm.
We also, you can see here, like at this time, Todd Kaminsky was on the Alcoholism and Drug Abuse Committee and the Health Committee. So it also is helpful to know where they are able to have some influence if that's where your legislative priorities are. Speaking of legislative priorities, here's an example of what we had at Nassau Region at one of our ledge cons in order to pass out to our members. And you want to make sure that if you're having a PTA ledge con, that your priorities, if you are not going to use just the state ones, that they are all aligned, the state, the national, and your priorities are all aligned and not in conflict.
Another good resource for you is, of course, the position statements or position papers that are created on a state level and a national level. And those can be found on the state and national PTA websites. So all accessible. All right, so now here we come to when. Well, when can you have an event? Actually, you can have one absolutely anytime. Could be in October if that works for your particular school district or region. But most events for legislation are aligned along kind of like an advocacy calendar, which brings to a head or a culmination right before the budget vote. The governor pops the budget out sometime in January.
End of January.
Yes, and then the next thing you know, a lot of groups, PTA included, will go up to Albany and meet with people to the legislators to push advocacy points. So if you're having an event and you want to get the information out, you've got to have a calendar timeline. And so you can start back in August, September and decide when you're holding an event. There's no pressure at this point. You have a lot of time. You have a lot of leeway. You can do whatever research you need to do. You may want to find out when are your legislators in their home district. Do you want to do it before or during budget negotiations in Albany? You need to meet with your legislative conference committee and determine, gee, what's our structure? What kind of event are we having? Are we going to have a panel discussion, a fireside chat, a roundtable, a keynote speaker, and settle on what you want or a combination of those items. And then you're going to gather ideas and the direction for the event will start to take place. Look at your venues and set your timeline.
So this timeline that we're showing you and walking you through is with the understanding that your event will be in late February, early March. So anything, if you have it at a different time, you would have to adjust it. If you want to have if you have a keynote speaker, if you have a specific issue, that may change the format of your event. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at venues, or if you decide to have a virtual event. Are you going to have it be one big Zoom meeting? Are you going to have a couple of Zoom meetings? Are you going to have a Zoom meeting with breakout rooms for meeting? How are you going to have your members that want to come engage with your education stakeholders, engage with the legislators that are their representatives? How are you going to help make that connection in the virtual space as well?
All right, so if we're rolling at this point with the timeline for the end of February, beginning of March, about 5 or 4 months prior to the event, October, November, you're going to update that New York State senators and assembly, federal legislators, et cetera, document that we showed you. This way you have a good handle on who's in office and what their addresses are and what, how to connect with them. You're going to send out save the date. That's always a great thing because their calendars book up very, very quickly. And so do the educators and the PTA members and your guests and your keynote speaker. All those calendars really book up. We've had Regent Tillis several times has come down to our Nassau events. And if we hadn't done this kind of pre-work, getting that save the date, we would have never been able to have him attend. Secure your venue or, set how you're going to do it if it's going to be by Zoom, and set your price, especially if it's a venue, and make sure you do this upfront, make a motion at the PTA meeting because it is a budget expenditure.
And another thing, another person to invite is if you're going to have a moderator, you want to make sure that you get them that save the date so that they know that it's coming. And don't forget, if you want to invite any of the New York State PTA people, Kyle Belakopitsky, the executive director, or Dana Platon, the president, they also need that save the date to be able to, their schedules are also busy. So when we talk about inviting everyone and giving the save the date, shoot everybody an email. This is coming up. Please let us know if you're available.
Right, so in December, January, a couple of months before the event, you're going to discuss your panelists if you haven't already done that. You're going to decide who's going to moderate. We've used a professor out of Hofstra in the past who we absolutely love. But there's usually someone that you will find that will be, you know, a wonderful moderator if you're going to be doing a, what do we call that? I forgot it. What's it called? The
Question and answer.
yes, any kind of question and answer.
Hot topics.
Yes.
They had hot topics in education.
Yeah, so you're going to make sure that you get that set up. You're going to take a look at your depending on whether your state, region, local, the legislative priorities, make sure they're up to date. You're going to send out all those invites that we showed you earlier for fireside chat, for roundtable, whatever kind of event you're going to have. You're going to write articles and formulate and execute a social media campaign. This is a big deal. You want to get the word out to as many of your members and community people as you can, because this is a great place for advocacy to occur and to get everybody up to speed on what's happening, especially in your geographic area.
You also, this is a really great time to get feedback from your community. Like we said, if you're going to have a hot topics in education, you're going to be talking about the things that are important to people right now. This is a great time to virtually even have a town hall, have them send out a Google form for them to submit their questions or what they want to hear about. They should be informing you about what you are going to have discussed at these events. You know, we have our priorities, New York State has priorities, Nassau Region has priorities, but if you're doing it locally, even if as Nassau Region, we wanted feedback from people to hear what they wanted to hear about, what were their concerns, what were their questions. So that should help inform also if, for example, mental health was a big concern. So one year we had a mental health focused fireside chat, and the people that we invited that were specifically to discuss the mental health issues for our youth. So that came out of what was happening and what we were hearing feedback from.
Yes, and of course, part of this then, once you've got all those ideas kind of swirling around, you got to put them down on paper. You're going to be creating your brochure. You're going to be creating a platform book. And a platform book is basically word for word what's going to be happening at the event and what you're saying. Here's a great example. This is what the region director would say at 9 a.m. Good morning. My name is region director's name, and I am the region director or whatever. And at this time, we'd ask you to stand for the pledge. And then it continues on. Word for word, nothing is left to chance.
Nothing off the cuff.
No, gives you a certain amount of comfort, and you know that it's going to run very smoothly. It's also really easy to time something like this. You can stay really close to whatever your time frame is. As you can see, look, 9:45, it tells you what's happening next. You can really stay on top of it, and your not only do your attendees appreciate that, but your legislators and invited guests really appreciate it.
It helps you stay organized to make sure that you acknowledge and recognize any special guests that may have come that might not be part of the panel discussion, anyone that you need to recognize. And it lets you keep track of everybody that's there also, because you can obviously last minute change this. And this is the same if it was a virtual event. If people log in that you weren't expecting and said that they weren't, or logged in at the wrong time, you can still, because you have this, fit them in, because you're not going off the cuff. It's very organized and you're prepared, which is the most important part.
And one thing that Susan and I can really tell you is that when you're doing this kind of event, stuff happens. There will be the legislator that'll pop in that you didn't expect. They weren't supposed to come, and it's a senator that, you know, you really wanted to show up, and they kind of said, well, we have something else. And the next thing you know, about a half an hour before the event starts, you get a text or a phone call or an email, and there they are. And now you very neatly are able to take that person and put them into a very organized platform book, and no feathers are ruffled, and everything looks seamless. Only you know that you are PTA flexible and we're able to have that happen, and it really makes a difference. So be prepared with that. Okay, so about 1 month to 2 weeks before the event, you're going to have your legislation committee, the people who are helping you with the event, to discuss what you've planned. Essentially, decide how you're handling Q&A. Are you going to do it, you know, from the floor? You're going to have microphones there and your attendees are able to just ask, or you're going to have a moderator. You're going to have with index cards. Don't forget a timekeeper, kind of really important in this kind of an event, because there tends to be a little bit of a ramble fest at times. So you do have to have that. Make sure that you get whatever documents you want to email people, and the 1 or 2 handouts you want to give, get everything together. Finalize everything else. Make sure you have your brochure, your guest and keynote bios, and your platform book. Walk through your venue. If it's an in-person event, make sure everything is set the way you need it. You're going to get there nice and, you know, you're going to get there early and the day of, but about a week or 2 before, you are going to take a walkthrough with your maitre d' or your restaurant person, or if it's in the school, you're going to make sure that the head custodian understands what your setup is. And if you're in a theater like at Malloy College or at Hofstra, you're going to speak to the people who are in charge of that theater, and they have an understanding of how that's going to roll. So everyone's on the same page, everybody's comfortable and cheerful. It really kind of works. You're also going to follow up with each legislator. You remember those invites you sent out? Well, you need to call each and every one. And that's a little time consuming, and you'll probably speak to staff, and that's fine. But the phone call makes a world of difference. They will come if they know you really want them there, and that you have constituents who are interested in seeing them there. If you need, if it's in a catering place and it's a breakfast, like Susan and I have done several like that, you may need to have a seating meeting so that you know you've got certain units sitting together or certain communities sitting together. These are all small details that will make a big difference the day of the event. It'll make things run very smoothly. Obviously, you're going to set the room diagram and facilitate whatever you need to do to make things go as smooth as possible.
So that was for an in-person event. If you're doing a virtual event, a lot of that will be the same. You want to have your legislative committee meet and discuss what the panel is going to look like. If you're having a virtual event, the way we did it when we went virtual, we had a 1-hour panel discussion with legislators, and then we had a 1-hour panel discussion with the education stakeholders. You have to figure out what you think will work best for your virtual event, because we didn't have breakout rooms. We didn't want to have people sitting too long. We needed to give our legislators a specific time to be on. We needed to give our education stakeholders a specific time to be on. So, you know, that's what worked for us. We had our questions submitted online. So when we did the registration form online, because we didn't have flyers that were being sent home, we also gave the registrants a place to submit questions or any topics that they were interested in. We used the Zoom chat feature so that people could ask questions or follow-up questions in the chat. New York State PTA, sometimes when they have web chats, has a dedicated email for receiving questions or topics. So that is something that you can set up if you do a virtual event. You want to make sure that everything that you want to hand out, instead of having a packet and putting it together, you're going to email it. You can email it out attached to your Zoom information. You can post it on your website and direct people to get it there. You want to make sure a platform book, just as important as it is in an in-person, you're going to have it, you're going to read it, you're going to be on camera, just as, so you need to know what you're going to say, you need to know who's next, because you don't have that. It's even possibly more important because you don't have the, oh, I need to get so-and-so, go find them. Everybody needs to know, based on the platform book and the timeline in general that you give, that they are talking next, that they are responsible for something at this time. You want to make sure the Zoom meeting has whatever features you need. If you are having breakout rooms, make sure you have them and how many you need. If you need the chat, if you need to be able to mute everybody, who's going to be the host, who's going to be able to share their screen if you need to share the screen. You want to make sure you're following up with personal phone calls for each legislator, just like Patrice said, whether or not they already RSVP'd. If they RSVP'd they're coming, just call and make sure and say you're looking forward to it. And something that might work, if you have a committee, you should use them. Like Patrice said, it's a lot of calls, but they do like to hear from their constituents. So if there's anybody on there, on your committee, who can call the senators that are their senators, or break it up a little bit, that takes a little bit off of you, and that personal connection that they know that their constituent is calling them and wants them to come, it helps to get them there. You want to make sure that you're providing your moderator, if you have one, with the discussion topics. So when we have Professor Torf, both in person and virtually, we send him the topics. We don't tell him specifically what to say, but we're like, these are the topics that we want addressed, and he prepares his questions and the conversation on those topics. And you want to make sure that you run through, instead of doing a walkthrough at a venue, you're going to do a Zoom walkthrough. You're going to run through the technology, make sure that everybody has the Zoom updated that they needed. You assign someone to keep track of time, and you have to figure out how they're going to let you know that time is up. Are they texting you? Are they raising their hand? Are they doing an emoji or a reaction on Zoom? You need to have somebody who's going to be responsible for watching the waiting room and let people in when it's appropriate, or if they fall out and have to come back in. You need to have someone notify you of those people being let in the waiting room when the special guests arrive. You don't want to call on Regent Tillis that he's in the Zoom if he's not there yet. But if he does show up unannounced, you want someone to tell you, oh, Regent Tillis is in the Zoom now. You need to acknowledge that he's there and recognize him. And you want somebody to monitor the chat for questions and follow-ups.
All right. As you can see, prep work's really, really important. But here we are to the where. Where can you hold your event? Obviously, you can hold it on Zoom, but if we are getting a little bit more back in person-to-person type events, so you can hold it in your home school, at your school district, in a town hall, and you can incorporate your surrounding villages and towns. You can do it on a regional level, a county level. You can even do it. New York State PTA has a legislative summit, and we have it up in Albany, and we've coupled that the next day with a lobby day. So there's lots of wheres. We have, yeah, there it is. This is a really interesting idea. If you have a few councils, in this case, my town, Baldwin, we had the Council of Baldwin PTAs, and we, in cooperation with Freeport, Long Beach, and Oceanside and Rockville Center, had a legislative forum together. We did it in Malloy College in the theater there, and it really was a lot of fun. It was very informative. It was no food involved. People just came, and it was just a wonderful event. So there's very, very flexible ways to do the kind of event that would really be tailored to your particular needs. There's no one right way to do it. There's many right ways to hold a legislative event.
a couple of things we missed is that when you have the event, you have given your timeline and to the guests and to the legislators when people arrive. If you have a packet, you want to make sure that you're giving them the program that gives them an idea of what they're in for that day, when they're going to have a break, what the different sections are, who are the key players that they need to know about. And if you are going to have special guests and keynote speakers, you want to give it a little bit of information about who these people are. Why are you choosing them to speak at this event? So we had a PTA LegCon, and for the fireside chat, we gave the bios. You could just ask whoever's coming, can you give us a brief little bio about yourself to share with our members? And we have the moderator give a bio so that they know why we chose them, the education specialists. And you don't need to give the bios for the legislators because they're online, they're the elected officials. Right. You would hope that people coming to your legislative event would know their local legislators. You might want to show them where they can find that information, but you have to have the information for who the other speakers are, because not everybody may be familiar with that.
All right, why? Well, obviously, collaboration. We like to work in partnership with a wide array of individuals, associations, and we're all looking for the same thing. We're looking to make things better for our kids. And of course, commitment. We are very dedicated promoting children in all aspects, their health, their well-being, their educational success. And one of the ways we do that is through strong parent, family, and community involvement. And this is a really good way to get everyone involved.
You want to make sure you're being inclusive. You want to invite the stranger and welcome the newcomer. You want to value the input that you get from all the different opinions. That's why we have legislators, and that's why we have the education specialists, because they come to the table wanting to do the same thing, but they come at it from a different way. And so it gives us a chance to hear the different perspectives. And you want to make sure that you have an event that has integrity, right? You want to have consistently with our beliefs. You want to make sure you are consistent with New York State PTA beliefs, and you want to acknowledge a mistake and seek to make amends if you do so.
Every child, one voice. It is PTA's mission to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children.
So we've walked you through, we broke it down for you month by month, how to have and host a legislative event. And now, if you have any other questions, we're happy to continue this conversation with you. You can reach out to myself or Patrice anytime. We'll be happy to tell you more about our experiences. We can tell you how our events were, what the different formats we've had. So please feel free to reach out to us at any time.
We're so glad that you chose to spend some time with us. We look forward to hearing from you.